But the wonderful thing is that when that happens, now these contractors can pay the supply chain in 3 or 4 days, when it was 45, 50, maybe 60 days before. And that is good for everybody.
This series of episodes was recorded live at Digital Construction Week 2025 at the Excel in London. I got the privilege of interviewing some amazing people that are shaping the future of the built environment through the technology that organizations are developing and delivering now and for the future. Although this podcast was worth the entry fee alone, let's admit it, now is the time to register your interest for next year's Digital Construction Week 2026. But if, like me, you can't wait until next year, check out Digital Construction North on the 19th of November. The links to both events, as always, are in the show notes. But just before we go live with this week's episode, here's a brief intro to the topic we cover and today's guest. Driven by the need to enhance efficiency, reduce waste, and improve collaboration, digital solutions are at the forefront of the change within the built environment, offering tools that streamline processes and connect various stakeholders across the construction lifecycle. Digitalisation is not simply a matter of implementing new technologies. It depends on a mind shift, a cultural shift, and operational practice updates. As projects grow more complex and pressure on time, cost, and sustainability increase, the industry must rethink how information flows, how teams collaborate, and how value is created at every stage of the supply chain. From real-time data integration to predictive analytics and a connected supply chain, technology is redefining what is possible, but also reshaping the expectations of clients, contractors, and the wider built environment community. The importance of this cannot be understated. So we need to chat to someone who is at the top of supply chain technologies that are facilitating a more connected industry. Paul Devlin, CEO of Causeway Technologies, is an industry veteran with over 25 years of experience in sales and consulting, holding executive leadership positions with leading global companies, including SAP, SAS, and Teradata. Paul is a passionate advocate for lifelong learning, having begun his career as a plumber before moving into the world of business. He's often sought out within the industry for his thought leadership and experience in leading Salesforce transformations in high growth environments. Taking a step back, Paul graduated in 2016 with a master's in leading sales transformation from Middlesex University and holds advanced leadership certification from Cranfield University in the UK and the Centre of Creative Leadership in the United States.
Well, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So first of all, just tell the listeners who you are and what you're doing at Digital Construction Week.
Yeah. So I'm Paul Devlin. I'm the CEO of Causeway. Been in the business 2 years, been the CEO for the last 6 months. I think Digital Construction Week for us is probably threefold. One, it's a fantastic way for us to just get the brand, get it out there.
Yeah.
Like most software companies, we're evolving. You know, we want the industry to understand our messaging and how we're evolving. So I think that's one reason. The other one is just, frankly, it's a fantastic chance to go network.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a different way, Pete. You know, go take somebody for coffee. I get a chance to go meet with journalists.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then the third reason is I'm speaking, here as well, because I want the thought leadership nature of Causeway to really come through as part of us being here as well.
Yeah, for sure. And the fourth reason is to come on the podcast, obviously. So
with that shadow of a doubt, this is the highlight.
Of course it is.
This is the highlight.
You're not the first person. You won't be the last person to say.
I have no doubt. No doubt.
Right, excellent. Right, let's get into this, shall we?
Yeah.
what I want to start with is looking at digital transformation. So have we taken it too slow and been too cautious, or is that the right approach?
Yeah, I think in some ways there's a multifaceted answer to that, Pete. I think in some ways the answer may be yes. So I think, look, the construction industry does tend to lag behind other industries in its adoption of technology. And I think that it can move faster. But I think also this is a very, very different industry. If you compare, let's say, manufacturing to construction, when I manufacture something, I know what it is I'm manufacturing, and typically I may be manufacturing the same 3 or 4 things every single day. So it's much easier for me to build processes that scale. Well, if I'm a construction company, every customer requirement is different.
Yeah.
Every project is different. If I'm a tier 1 contractor, 80% of the people on my site are not my employees. They belong to subcontractors. I'm really concerned with the management of risk in all of its guises. And that's a very, very different thing to manage than a linear process in a sense like manufacturing. So I do understand it. But I also do think if I look at the industry and I contrast the industry, I've been very fortunate in my career, Pete, spent a lot of time globally in industries like retail, manufacturing, banking, and telco. And I think what they realized a number of years ago was that platforms were going to be the differentiator for them. They were never going to achieve what they achieved if they were building point solutions. There are some parts of a business where it's very constrained in that business what it does, that a point solution will work. But they realized that the way to improve productivity, the way to get themselves continuing to innovate was really through connecting the dots across their own business and across their supply chain. That's a difficult thing to do for construction because the supply chain is fragmented. But I think the opportunity is there now because of technology to enable construction to move forward much, much more quickly.
Yeah, and you can see that at the show today and over the next few days that there's so much technology out there and it's becoming more open and more transparent. And it's there. It's just how we implement that and the best ways of doing that in an industry which is forever changing.
Yeah, indeed.
Talking of that data-driven world, you spoke just then about joining the dots, and I love that phrase. Well, what's the cost of not doing that and continuing to operate in silos?
Yeah, indeed. So look, I think let me give you a perfect example.
Yeah.
Actually, we're dealing with a customer that would be a mid-tier customer, turning over, maybe 150 million. Yeah. They're currently running a process of estimating, where they are very spreadsheet driven.
Okay.
Yeah. And they've come to realize as the sheer volume of estimates that they need to deal with is exponentially increasing.
Yeah.
They've also come to realize the way that mistakes can very easily happen in a spreadsheet driven world. And if you make a mistake on pricing, as you're building an estimate, that's kind of a major issue, right? So they came to us and they asked us to have a look at how we could streamline the end-to-end, in a sense, the pre-construction process focused on estimating and inquiries. And as we did that, we looked at how they were spreadsheet driven. We looked about moving them to technology and what technology would give them. What we were able to build for them was, we were able to help them build a business case that had really 4 main focuses. How they would save time. How are they going to get time back? How could we use this to make them money? How could they win more bids? How could we save them money? And how could we help them be compliant?
Yeah.
And as we took them through that process, we built a business case for them. And that business case showed a bottom line improvement of £1 million in the first 12 months and a payback of 4.5 months. So there's an example, Pete, of just one mid-market company with one process that is very spreadsheet and manual today.
Yeah.
That when you digitize the process, you bring it into technology and you begin to automate that process. That is the type of cost saving that we're seeing. Now imagine building that up process by process right across this industry. That's where I think the prize lies.
And you've got to start from somewhere, right? And looking at it like that, it's that use case and highlighting it. And talking to a previous guest, and what they Gamma AR and what they do is augmented reality on site.
Sure.
And pinpointing certain locations so that when it comes to looking at what's needed next, you've got a really accurate representation of what's going on site. And they work with a company and they basically said that, say they've got 10 floors, they use Gamma AR on 5 floors and not on 5 floors. And not using technology highlighted the inefficiencies.
Sure.
And you know, I don't want to go into Causeway too much because we're talking about the industry in general right there, and rightly so. But it's almost a case of you need that use case and look at how this can multiply very quickly.
Indeed. I also think, Pete, one of the fact that the talk track that I gave this morning, some of the guidance that I was giving to the audience was really around, try to find the processes in the business that are broken. Yeah. And if you find them, use them as your test bed and then build and iterate. So as an example, and again, had a customer here this morning, and what they were telling me is, this customer has got more dashboarding capability than most other construction companies. And yet, they still lack intelligence.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is you could ask 5 different people using 5 different dashboards a question and you'll get 5 different answers. You can have you get 5 different people do the same process, but do it 5 different ways. And that is going to be completely inefficient.
Yeah.
They're the places where companies should start.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, start to think about that, build that as your use case, start to digitize. And then when you digitize, you then have the grounds for how you can automate. And if you can automate, that's when things like the promise of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and large language models, that's when they have a bigger impact on your business.
Yeah, for sure. Rather than starting at that point and you've already confused yourself because it's like, well, what do we want AI to do? We know it's important, so let's implement it.
Indeed.
But why are you implementing it?
Indeed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Indeed.
Fantastic. So, sticking with the joining the dots analogy, what's stopping us from joining the dots between data, technology, and people? And where's the best place to start?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is hard.
Yeah.
So I don't want to pretend that it is not. Because we have such a fragmented ecosystem. Yeah. But let me just give you some examples. Yeah. If you take, let's just say I'm a tier 1 contractor right now, and I'm running a large project, whether let's just say it's HS2, right?
Yep.
Lower Thames Crossing, whatever. One of the things that is a big concern for me is how do I know the people coming on site are the people that they say they are? How do I know they have the skills? So if I'm hiring plumbers through a subcontractor, how do I know that they're fully qualified? How do I know when they were last qualified? And have they gone through the proper health and safety training that means that when they come on my site, I can be assured that the person's health and safety is going to be a massive priority.
Yeah.
If I'm a tier 1 contractor, that's a very difficult thing to achieve today. But if I go to my supply chain and I were to say to my supply chain, okay, if you are going to come and do business with me, the way in which I want to do business with you is I need to understand who's coming on site, their skills. I need to understand how you verified them, all of those sorts of things. If you make that a prerequisite, my experience in other industries is that supply chains will start to innovate around that. So the first piece has got to come the question, what are you trying to achieve and why? Yeah. And then how can you work with your supply chain to enable that? Second one, let's just take government initiative of faster payment. Yeah. What has the government said? It said, well, if you want to bid for government contracts, you have to be able to pay your suppliers an X amount of days. So what happens? Well, you force the industry to go and innovate and change its technology. The industry then has to digitize all of those processes. It has to get the supply chain to behave in a specific way in order for it to then meet its commitments. But the wonderful thing is that when that happens, now these contractors can pay the supply chain in 3 or 4 days when it was 45, 50, maybe 60 days before. And that is good for everybody.
Yeah.
So again, Pete, so what's the problem that you're trying to solve? Think about that problem end to end, iterate, start, and then work your way through it. Then go into your supply chain. And if, in my experience is when you're very, very clear of that supply chain and they understand what's in it for them. And let's be clear, what's in it for them might simply be, you get to trade with me.
Yeah.
That may be it. But that's how this industry is going to make a difference. Because until you join the dots across the supply chain, till you join the dots internally and you join the dots externally, the industry is going to continue on 3%, 4%, and 5% margins. Yeah. And it needs to connect itself and connect its supply chain in order to shift through that, improve productivity. Then you start to see better margins for everybody in that supply chain.
And there's two things there. It's almost that trickle down approach that benefits everybody.
Yep.
But also going back to what you were saying about the money saving aspect, like you say, getting paid quicker, everybody makes more money. Everyone's got more money to invest in people, in processes, in tech.
Yep.
It's a win-win. It's a no-brainer.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. And if you don't mind, Pete, if I give you one other story, just in terms of my own business and how I operate it. And this is based on, obviously, my experience of digitizing other companies. When I came into Causeway, I put in a go-to-market platform. Doesn't matter what it was called, but I put in a go-to-market platform. And as I was adding other applications to that platform, I was very, very clear with those application vendors. You either integrate bi-directionally into my platform or you can't do business with me.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is I know the power that comes from integration. So I don't want to go after building out my go-to-market one application at a time. I need it fully integrated. I need it joined up. I need all of those point solution providers to be able to talk to my platform, because that's how I benefit and I can move much, much more quickly at scale. And it's the same concept for the industry and for construction companies.
Yes, at scale. It's interesting because I was talking to somebody earlier, anecdotally, and they had two mobile phones. One was work, one was personal. They're two very different. And because of the restrictions on the work mobile, and they were very different platforms, they couldn't transfer photos that they needed from their personal and all that kind of stuff. And that's one piece of tech for one thing for one person.
Yeah. Yep.
You multiply that.
Yes. It's another great example, Pete.
Exactly.
It really
right.
is.
Okay. So having said all that, the construction industry is inherently risk averse, and rightly so in some aspects. But is it time to take more risk with technology?
So as a technologist, I'm going to say yes to that. But I also think there's a lot of really good reasons for that. I think let's talk about the promise of AI. And in that context of talking about AI, I mean a large language model or machine learning capability, right?
Yeah.
And if I think about that as a context, What AI is becoming massively better at is taking unstructured data and making sense of that data. And we have masses of unstructured data sitting inside construction companies today. There's masses of unstructured data across the supply chain. So I think the promise of technology and the way that technology is enabling integration and enabling the connection of the dots, I think this is why construction has to move faster. I think there's a second piece. You mentioned the point, I'm glad you did, about construction being risk averse. A lot of CIOs that I meet would tell me that their IP, their intellectual property, their secret sauce in a sense, Pete, it comes from their understanding of how construction works.
Right.
Their understanding of how they go after projects and their understanding of their subcontractors and how they work. And it's the bringing of that together in that risk-averse way that means they can price for work and win work reliably. Well, the challenge with that is, I think, in the not-too-distant future, that IP that construction companies hold is going to be eroded. And why do I say that? What AI so far has been fantastic at is democratizing knowledge. Yeah. So, AI, the various AI models now have got to a stage where they can bring PhD level thinking. If I ask a question of the large language model, I've got a PhD student that is responding to me with all of that knowledge. So where knowledge used to be power, in the world of AI, knowledge is no longer power. It is what you do with the knowledge that becomes power. It is, how do you use AI to enhance human beings? How do you use it to make a human more productive? How do you use it, particularly in construction? An AI may think in a work plan that you do part one before you do part two, and the model might say that's how you do it. But an experienced person in construction will know that isn't going to work.
Yeah.
The AI will not have the context. Humans bring context and experience. AI brings that PhD level thinking and problem solving. And I think that's what construction and all across construction has to start to get its head around. Because I think the IP that those companies hold today will be very, very different to the IP that they hold 5 years from now. And I think the industry's got to start with that now and today.
And it's a beautiful thing that you're saying you're technology focused, technologist, and it's all about the tech, the organization that you're running. It's all about the technology, but literally through that whole answer, it's all about the human intelligence.
Yes.
And it's a beautiful thing that you so eloquently put. That is the crux of it. We still need that intelligence.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. And I don't see us moving away from that anytime soon, Pete. As I said, I think it's about enhancing what humans do today. It's enhancing the human experience in the workplace. It's enhancing productivity of humans. Don't get me wrong. It absolutely will mean there are roles that in the old world we would have hired for that we don't need to hire for now.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean we need to get rid of the roles that we have today. Yeah. So that's why I say to you, I think it has a massive part to play in improving efficiency and improving productivity and enhancing a human experience. Yeah. I don't see robots anytime soon being under a sink. Yeah. I don't see them anytime soon, fixing boilers and things like that. Right. So it really is enhancing that human experience and productivity. I think that's a promise for the next few years that it brings to us.
Yeah. I think my sink's actually dripping. So if those robots can become under the sink capabilities, that'd really help me out right now.
And I'm sure. I'm sure it would. Yeah.
Maybe I'll have to look at it this weekend instead. Right. Okay. Final question then.
Yeah.
So it's 10-year anniversary of Digital Construction Week. Where do you think construction's going to be in 10 years' time?
Yeah, it's a great question, right?
Impossible to answer, I know.
Yeah, no. Look, I think in 10 years' time, I think Digital Construction Week will be a very different digital experience.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know that Digital Construction Week will take place in an arena like this.
Right, yeah, true.
Don't know that it'll take place in a hall like this. Yep. But what I do think it will do is it will provide a very different digital experience. Yep. And, why do I say that? So in construction, we talk a lot about digital twins. Yeah, we talk a lot about the creation of a digital twin. Because when you have that, again, you can get productivity and efficiencies and gains from that. Well, I think you can create a digital twin of Digital Construction Week.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be very easy for you to do. Causeway would still want to be part of it. The other vendors here will still want to be part of that, but will probably be part of it in a very, very different way and very digitally enabled. I think the other thing that was going to change massively is the way in which we receive content.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about why are humans here today? They're here because they want to be educated. They're here because they want to network. They're here because it's a day out of the office as well, right? But it's a chance to go meet people in a very different environment. So we're humans, we're very social animals. I don't think that will change. Yeah. But I think the construct of this is likely to go into change, Pete, right? I think, we're going to see maybe a lot more. I don't know if you think back to the Tom Cruise movie and Minority Report. Yeah, I think you might see a lot more of that thing come to life. Content will come to people. People won't necessarily come to content. Companies' websites will become more and more important. The usage of that as a commercial engine, I think, will change massively, over time as well. So to me, there'll always be a place for Digital Construction Week, and I hope that there is.
Yeah.
I just think the nature of it will change, the way we'll experience it, and will change. And I think that will mean it will become much more innovative. We might all go to a cafe, and we'll experience Digital Construction Week in a whole host of different cafes up and down the country.
For sure, yeah.
So just the experience will change.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's going to be very interesting to see what happens there. Yeah.
I really do look forward to that. So hopefully we'll be in the same cafe in about 10 years.
I will look forward to that, Pete. Very much so. But
Paul, as always, absolute pleasure to talk to you today.
Likewise.
Thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.